They had to move at a fast walking pace to catch up with the guild worker. There was a lack of indication that the guild worker was aware that they hadn't initially followed after her and only just caught up. She also didn't mind the stares from the people waiting in line, though the adventurers made sure not to stare so intensely at the woman. It wasn't like the adventurers were afraid of the woman or the guild. Still, there existed clear respect for the power represented by the uniform. When they reached the front of the line, the guards stepped out of the way. James was a little surprised that the guards hadn't at least asked for her bracelet for identification purposes. Even if the worker likely hadn't left the area and stayed within sight of the guards. The way the guards moved out of the woman's way, it was as though they didn't want to step into something they'd regret. They just bowed slightly to show deference. Even James and Mim's group wasn't stopped and were allowed to follow after the woman. "I think this is the first time I haven't been asked to see my bracelet," Celine commented in a lowered voice to her group and James's group. "The guards are aware of what we bring to the city and the surrounding areas." The workers slightly turned their head towards them. "Sorry, I didn't mean to." Celine raised her hands as the blood drained from her face. Raising one hand, the worker said, "I'm aware how unusual this all is. The guild just happens to have a little bit of influence, so such perks aren't uncommon. We try not to take advantage of such things." Feeling like it was okay to ask, James said, "Are you able to tell us the reason why you were sent out to get us?" He made sure not to raise his voice, but speak politely. "We appreciate being able to skip a line, but I don't feel like we've done anything to receive such treatment." Raul followed up. He was holding his sister's hand as if to try and comfort her. Judging by Celine's expression, she was still shaken up by the guild worker overhearing her words. Instead of answering their questions, the woman continued to walk ahead of them. Seeing that they weren't going to get an answer, James just looked at their surroundings. Just like any day, the streets were crowded with people with wagons passing them by. The only difference was how the wagons made sure not to get too close to where the worker was walking. They also slowed down, mitigating any dirt from being kicked up from the wheels. "I wonder whether they get the same treatment even without their uniforms," James wondered to himself, not tempting the chance for the woman to hear him. When it came to the guild workers, there was a lot of mystery. None of the workers were from the immediate area. New workers would just appear in the guild while old faces would vanish. From what little information they were told, the workers would get cycled through the different locations managed by the guild. This not only allowed the prevention of fraudulent activity, but also gave workers the chance to be exposed to differing cultures. Adventurers were usually transient by nature. This meant that adventurers would sometimes travel long distances, and the guild was generally what connected them. It was joked by some adventurers that the guild was the only home that many of them knew, and fellow adventurers were more like family. While they may act independently, they would still try to look out for others as much as they could afford to. Walking for some time, heading towards the administration section of the city, it wasn't long until they spotted a structure that cast a long shadow onto the city. James looked up at the building, which was several times larger than the buildings next to it. Even the administrative buildings in the city were significantly smaller. "I still can't believe how large the guild is in this place," James thought to himself as they approached the monolith.